All right, YouTube says we're live, so welcome to the chat. Got barely anybody here. It is what it is. Let's talk slot cars. What you got going on these days, Dewan? How's your track in your house coming? You're muted, dude. You are muted. Dewan, 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 Dewan.
Yeah, sorry
There you,
about that.
there you go.
I'm just trying to get my RV converted, get it insulated so that I can convert that into my hobby room. That's what
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
hobby garage, and that's always a long, daunting process. Probably before the end of the summer.
I didn't
Oh, we
even
got
think
Wayne.
about that as a just an RV garage, it didn't really need to be
Yeah,
properly insulated.
being in Las Vegas on 105 to 110-degree temperatures and having a metal building,
Yeah, no. Nope. Nobody, nope.
got a lot to do.
Hey, John, there's Wayne. Sorry, Mike. There's Wayne.
Cool.
Wayne, Mike was wondering if you wanted to talk about your event this past weekend. We're being super cash today because there's barely anybody here. So, you know what? Just whatever.
No show and tell.
That
I
you want to do a show and tell? Go ahead.
I don't have one ready now. There will be
Anybody else got
something.
show and tell before? Wayne wants show and tell to happen before he talks
No,
about
I
his
just,
race.
I just, the format. Are we actually already streaming, are we?
We are live, yes.
I apologize for my 3 or 4 minutes of lateness. I was just trying to get the computer up.
Now,
I don't use it for
John,
much other than
John,
this
John
anymore.
sent me an email saying, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be here. Like,
John, okay.
yeah, Mr.
Well,
Kit.
yeah. He'd rather talk about spider poop, I think. Oh gosh. So let's I don't know where to start. Let's just start with a question. Anyone got a question? Let's start from that.
Anything
I mean,
special
it
happening?
was an analog race on two mirror image track layouts,
Correct.
eight lane scale auto track.
In Spain, in
And
Barcelona, in Igualada, where the Crick Crack shop is, where the Scale Auto is based.
yeah,
It's their venue they called the Superdome. We've seen it on Facebook mainly, I think, but never been. We hear about their events because they do a bit of publicity from off the back of them, etc. And we decided we would like to try and do a long endurance down there. And so we built Cadillac hypercar. It was all Cadillac in the pro category. In the standard category, you could run any of the hypercars, but there were certain minor differences. And uh, the word of the week that sums it all up, really, I think, is disappointment.
I mean, I heard you didn't do super well. I think when
Yes,
I peeked in at the progress that you were what Car Fun, I believe, was your team.
that's
I
right.
assume. Yeah. So, and it was not last, but
That is the
pretty close.
upside. That was yeah, that was what I would that's the other thing I would say. I would have said I had that in mind to say, well, at least we weren't last.
Yeah.
But there was so much that we didn't know going into this race meeting because we just couldn't find out what little documentation that does exist pre-event was only a guideline and they didn't stick to it anyway.
Yeah.
Things like the race meaning to start at 11 a.m. Well, it didn't. It was underway before we realized, well, we obviously we were on the grid, etc. But it was like we looked at the clock at the start and it was like, it's 40 minutes early and we appear to be started. Well, the race format that gets public, the event format, time schedule, I should call it, is published for with enough space in it for all four tracks to be running, I guess, and up to 40 teams. But then the first disappointment, forgive me a moment. Sorry about that. I'm making too much noise for upstairs. Um, the first disappointment was that there were only two tracks in use and only 20 teams had entered. I had expected a bigger entry, so that was disappointing to discover. And the 24-hour WES is not actually a 24-hour race. It's actually 16 hours. Yeah. The way the event is with the way that they run 40 cars on 4 tracks and 20 cars on 2 tracks that are all multiples of 8 is that there's 16 cars live at any one time and there are 4 that aren't running.
Oh, okay.
So even when they do the rotation, which is basically a lot like round robin,
Yeah.
it's a round robin that you go through 4 times through. So you start on, let's say you start on an odd numbered lane. You go, I think you go from, oh no, let's say you go from 13, you go down in 2s, 11, 9, all the way down to 1.
Yeah.
And then you sit out for one sector, and then you come back on in 2, and you go 4, 6, 8, all the way through to 16.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you come back along the rostrum. Basically, you're traversing the rostrum left and right, always in steps of 2.
Yeah.
But every 5 sectors that you drive, you sit one out, and then you resume again after a sector has elapsed. So it depends on how many teams enter the race as to how long the sectors will be. And it turns out that because there was a 20-car entry and 16 lanes, the sectors were of a 28-minute duration. So the timing systems were all set for 28-minute legs. And we tried to come up with a strategy to fulfill many different requirements in that format. And we decided what we would do as 4 drivers fits into this very, very well, this 16 multiple, that we would do double stint driving. So we would do lanes 1 and 3 with one driver, 5 and 7 with the next driver, 9 and 11, and then 13 and 15. And that would be the 4 drivers across one run across the driver stand. But that one run across the 16 lanes takes you from one circuit to the other as well.
Yeah.
And you've just gone all the way through the odd numbers. Now, the reason we did that is because 1 is only 2 lanes away from 3. And so anybody that's good at 1 should be good at 3.
Yeah.
And the driver who drives the gutter lane number 1 would not be your best choice driver for driving gutter lane number 7, the opposite gutter, or called very close to the opposite gutter. So we had people we pretty early on during the practice, which has its own completely different format. We decided to start doing lane specialization with our drivers. And there was no pre-plan to this. It was arbitrary. We made it up on the day. And practice went completely differently. Practice was in 5-minute sectors, and it took us 20 minutes of practicing to work out what was actually going on. We just went and used an empty position and an empty driver stand and an empty lane in practice. And 5 minutes later, the buzzer went, and then we moved just like everybody else moved. And we just we actually started moving down the numbers one at a time. And then we were meeting drivers coming the other way who wanted to plug into the box that we just plugged into, and they were looking at us a bit strange. And so we realized everybody was going up the numbers. So
Yeah.
we decided to do the same. And we carried on, move 1 step to your right, move 1 step to your right. And of course we were rotating the drivers just to get us all awake with the way that the layout kind of ran. And we were focusing primarily on one of the layouts because that was the end of the rostrum where we'd started. And then we discovered that the timing screen had actually got the team name on it above a column of laps. And we were counting laps for a team that were not practicing at this time. They just not put a car on the track. And our column was completely empty. So it was like, oh,
kept being
shoot.
in the wrong lane.
Yeah, we kept practicing on the wrong lane. Because at the time when we'd asked you can go anywhere you like at the moment because there's only 4 drivers practicing. So
Yeah.
that's what we did. We never got to know it. We had to accidentally discover that we were in the wrong lanes, and we then proceeded to pick it up. And then we found that we realized what the format for practicing was. And of course, it didn't take us long to realize that our car was not the way we wanted it to feel. The overriding characteristics that we got from immediate was that the track seemed to make that pretty spicy motor feel pretty lame. We don't know whether it was a low voltage, but we are familiar with the motor that sits in the range below the one that we were racing. We were racing a 22.5K, and we are familiar with the 18K version of the same motor. And the car weight is very similar to the one that we're familiar with running, the GT3 Disca category. Their car weight is similar. But it just felt a bit weedy. The second, and this was most obvious, was that there was no brakes. We couldn't find enough brakes for any of the drivers. We had 3 different controllers among us: SCP, a Carstein, and a Scale Auto PHN1, PNH1, I think it was. None of which gave us any level of braking that any of us were really happy with. We were all just commenting to one another that we can't attack any of the corners, particularly on the inside lanes where you really want to turn the brakes up and have a really stoppy kind of car come out of it and shoot away. Well, we could do none of that. The braking characteristics kind of nearly suited the middle lanes, which were quite flowy, because the layout is basically a complicated figure 8, but you do nearly as much turning left as turning right. But no brakes, couldn't find any brakes. And we know that you gain more brakes as you gear lower.
Oh.
There was no real speed in the car either. So we were on what we went with as as understood to be the correct gear ratio. We did a bit of asking around, recommendations from best people we knew that were there, and we got the same answer. But we decided, no, this is not right. This is not right for our car in particular. So we geared lower. We changed the spur gear. It was a simple case of there was a spur gear 2 teeth away that we could easily fit with. There was one teeth away, but we decided, no, we're going to make a change that we can actually feel the difference. So we did that. And we were like, well, we've got no, we've now got a bit more feeling of aggression coming from the motor, which we wanted, a bit more braking feeling, but we got no grip to speak of to carry any corner speed. And so we changed the offset in the motor pod, because the motor pod I'd chosen had got adjustable offset. It had got shims underneath the rear axle block. And so I put an extra 0.2 millimeters of shims in there and lowered the motor closer to the rails. This is based on having driven quite a few laps with the car now. And you look at the underside of the car and you go, yeah, the motor label, and I had a label on at this time. The motor label has got the odd mark on it. It's just getting wounded. It's not really dragging on the rails anywhere or anything like that, but we don't know whether or not it should be with the age of the tires that we've started practice on. And the tires themselves is another story. In the event format, we were told that we would get 4 pairs of tires to do the race on. And I bought 1 packet with 4 tires in preparation for the race. And I prepared those on a pair of 16.5 wheels and a pair of 16.2 wheels. So different diameters. I popped them on a tire truer, and just to find out what they were really like, just out the packet, very out of round. One of the worst in terms of going bang, 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 bang at the beginning of the tire truing process. I didn't get a number from them, from the diameter, but I trued them until they were like just about flat. Didn't pay a lot of attention to rounding corners or getting a very smooth finish. I just got them round. And for most plastic tracks with the abrasive I use, that's a surface finish that's just going to get worse. It's going to get gnarly from that point particularly that happens on Ninco anyway. So I trued them on the two different wheels and I measured them and I got in mind what the diameters were. They were 19.1 and 18.8. Now that's 0.3 apart, which is exactly the difference between the wheels. So it all makes sense. 16.5, 16.2, 0.3 apart, and I was resulting tyres 0.3 apart. But the 16.5 wheel was in this particular tyre was forcing a bit of a crown into the tyre, and truing those was not only making them round but taking the middle out. On the 16.2 wheel, all you were really doing was knocking the high spots off the diameter, and they would finish and they would be flat, and there would be far less work involved in that in truing that wheel. But it did inspire me to take the truer. And once I realized I needed to do that, I was on to the flight company booking a checked hold luggage bag, because in the past when I've flown with my slot car equipment, I've had tools taken away from me at security in the airport. If that's a stabbing weapon, if that's a cutting device, you can't have it in your hand luggage on the airplane.
Yeah.
I've fallen foul of that, like I said before, and I wasn't gonna go there and rebuy all my screwdrivers and scalpels and whatnots in a shop that's basically closed during the day. Quick Crack shop opens 5:30 in the evening till 8:30, and that's pretty much all it's open for.
Yeah.
So hold luggage came into play, which gave me 10 kilograms, which was plenty. But it included my power supply, it included the tire truer. And when I got there, we practiced on those tires. And when the event format became obvious to us, no, you can't have the tires. I'm like, what? I want the tires because they're not round. I want to be able to true them, but no, you can't have the tires. The tires stay on the pit bench. The tires stay in a carrier bag. In reality, there was a big brown paper envelope of tires, and you just put your hand in, you draw out a dozen, you put them on the table, and then you start rolling them on the table. And I learned this from observation. People were just rolling them on the table to try and find tires that would roll something close to straight and not go bump, 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 bump while they were doing it. So they were selecting tires from a batch production, and they were just picking out a pair, and that was the next pair on their car. And they would throw all the rest back in the bag, and then the car came from the track to the pit bench, had the tires swapped without removing the body shell, and put back on the track. And I didn't even know the diameter of a tire with in that condition.
Yeah.
Obviously bigger than anything I'd run in practice. But what we did do is we changed the height of the rear axle. We put that extra shim in, and we lowered the motor closer to the rails, and the label began to get damaged. And it was still sliding around. And I said, well, there was no point in coming over with this one pair of tires and running them for hours and hours through practice and not trying the other pair of tires on the other wheel. So we threw the other pair of tires back at the car, the bigger pair. We went from the 16.2 smaller diameter wheels. We went to changed the shim, which lowered the motor, and then we put the bigger diameter, 19.1 diameter tires on, like back to beginning. In fact, higher, taller gear ratio, taller tires, higher motor than the beginning of practice, and the car was better. So why was it better? Higher? It shouldn't have been better higher, but it was. We did the track was coming, the venue was beginning to clean up. I mean, there were a lot of people building reversed sticky tape on their setup block, and I didn't take enough tape to do this as often as other people were doing it, but they were stopping the car, rolling the car across the setup block, put it back in the lane, and they were going around, and they were immediately quicker. And so we tried it, and we experienced the same. Yeah, we were doing 12.6, 12.7 on the board. cleaned the tyres, put the car down, gave the driver immediately 2 or 3 tenths plus a bit of confidence, and they could get down and set a best lap. But it would last for 3 laps.
Yeah.
That's all you would get from it, and you'd be back down at the original lap time again. And we thought, well, that's just an early part of the practice session thing to do. You know, we're just cleaning up the dustiness that's left in the track, and that won't be true for the race. Surely not. This thing's going to rubber in a bit with all these cars doing all of these laps. Well, no, it didn't. Because in the race, people were doing exactly the same. For the whole of the race, people were stopping the cars, cleaning the tyres, putting it back on. And we were doing, we tried it too. We tried it. We did it. We put it back on, sent it, and we looked at the lap time we'd just done, and it had cost us 4.5, 5 seconds to do that stop. That's if you put the car straight back in the slot. If you
Yeah.
put the car down and the guide wasn't in the slot and you had to jiggle it a little, you could cost yourself another second. So we were doing like, instead of doing a 12, we were doing an 18. And then you would watch the lap times for the next half a dozen laps, and you would watch them go from low 12s to mid 12s to high 12s. And you would realize that you'd spent 6 laps trying to catch yourself back up, and you couldn't catch yourself back up. You would have been better not stopping.
Yeah.
And so we were like, why are all these guys doing this? They're all doing it, and they're doing it several times. And we've done it once and gone, we can't catch ourselves back up. We should have just not done it. We would have gone around doing 12.7s. And as it is, we did a tyre clean and we did a few 12.2s. But we'd have been better off just sticking at 12.7 with no loss. So that blew our minds. And that we learned early in the race. Now, okay, so I missed a fair bit of it out, like what happens at the end of practice, because at the end of practice, you have to turn in your car without tyres and without a motor into Parc Fermé, where they weigh the body shell, which has got a minimum 17 grams. We were right there. We also go into a room. We take our own tools, our own soldering iron, and they give us our handout motors. They just offer you a tray of motors and say, which one would you like? You pick one out. None of them have got a label on. They're all etched with official motor for this event written on them. And you basically install it in your car. And you've got 20 minutes to do that. And then there's 10 minutes in which you can run the car around on the track. And I put the motor in, handed in the car, and it was I'd put the body on and everything. It was all ready to go for this practice warm-up kind of thing. And then somebody before we even got to the track, somebody picked the car up and looked at the underneath and went, hang on a minute, your motor's a bit too low. And then I realized I've only ever put the motor in this motor pod once. And on the back of the arm, on the back of the motor, there's that little square. It's common to slot it, and it's got that little half moon, hasn't it, that sets the height of the bearing carrier so that this square can be inverted and it can hold a flat 6 motor.
Yeah.
I've only got to put that square on in the flat 6 orientation. And so I've put the bearing at that end right down low. And so the motor's hanging out below the car. And so while it should have been doing 10 minutes of lapping, it was back in the pits, and I was taking the motor out, flipping that plastic square back over and rebolting it all in on the gear ratio that we got the best lap times in practice. It did 2 laps in that 10 minutes at the end of that 10-minute sector, and then it went into Parc Fermé. And so we went home. Sunday morning, we come back, and the first thing that happens is qualifying. And qualifying is 1 minute on lane number 13 for all the teams with only one driver. So it took 20 minutes plus the changeover times to do the whole of qualifying. Fastest lap to count. And the technique seemed to be send the car goes off where, you know, the officials put it on the track. You go around 1 hairpin turn and you're over through the timing equipment. Most people were trying to do 2 laps and then come to the pit lane, which is towards the end of the lap, have a tire clean, put it back down, and then go around again and try and get 2 more. Well, the lap times were about 12, 24, 36, 48. So you were trying to get 48 seconds of laps in with 10 seconds of stop. And some teams were getting 4 laps, sometimes we're only getting 2. Why they felt the need to clean tyres after just 2 laps, I've no idea. We tried to do the same. We actually only managed to score about 3 laps because our driver did not go hard enough when the time started. He didn't go immediately, go hard. And by the time it was back in my hand, we did the tyre clean. He did 1 more lap. And then on the next one, the power went off. And the car was showing no performance at all. In fact, he said, it's slow. It's not fast. Its motor feels appalling. It's just a handout. All I did to it was squeeze the same pinion on that I took off our practice motor, lubricate the bushes, solder it in, and that's all. That's all it could do. So we talked about this and we said, okay, if this car's shocking, we should take some pain early in the race to try and correct it. And so when the race started, the first thing we did was pull it in the pits, and I changed the spur gear without ever removing the body shell. It was the grub screw on the wheel, the spacer, the 2 grub screws I used on the spur gear, spur off. Now, because it's only a 12-degree angle winder, you can't actually get the spur gear off past the pinion. Left the motor in the same mesh, changed the spur gear back to the taller gear ratio that we know that most of the field are running. Do the grubs up on that, put the spacer on that sets the wheel in the right place, put the wheel back on, and then we sent it again. And we just the first sector was, we couldn't really count the score and compare with anyone, although we knew we weren't on the pace. The second sector with the same driver, 28 minutes long, he scores something like 125 laps, and there are teams in the 140s. And we're like, we're going to be losing 15 to 20 laps per half an hour. And while we're watching this car going around the track, there were 7 other cars that just caught it and passed it. And one of our best drivers in the team could do nothing about it. And so we were like, well, maybe the tires will wear down and we'll get our motor close. We must have our motor too high. We can't think of any other reason. But when we had the motor low yesterday, it was just the same. So I had a chat with we kept running, and I managed to get the opportunity to chat to the technical inspector. And the tech inspector has got this A5 sheet of paper where they were ticking boxes and writing numbers and stuff about the configuration of all the cars. And he got them all. And I said, is that information on those bits of paper? Is that like published? Am I going to be able to see everything about everybody else's car like you can? And he kind of said, no, this is just data gathering for ourselves. And I thought to myself, okay, so hang on. You're the tech inspector. You get to see everything that everybody's doing with their car, measure, weigh everything, and then you take all that information home for your own use, and I don't get any of it. Well, I've seen this before, and I'm actually not a fan of it. So I quizzed him as much as I could with whatever English he'd got, and I discovered a few things, primarily about my own car, actually. And you may remember last week that Chris Walker was giving me some very good advice, which I completely subscribe to. It's the way I already like to build cars. And I'd done everything I could in that regard. I'd got ball bearing racers in my rear motor pod with no flange on them because the flange is metal and it's weight. And I just want all the weight out the car. And that's exactly what Chris was advocating. Make the car as light as possible. That will put lower forces trying to move the motor magnet away from the track. And so, yeah. But what I discovered was that our car was the second heaviest in the whole race. And I was like, how have I managed to build the second aluminium suspension screws, everything I could do to keep that car as light as possible. Well, he said, you are the only team running that motor pod. What do you mean that motor pod? He said they're all using 1mm offset, fixed offset, black material motor pods. And you've got that one where you can adjust the axle height, haven't you? And I said, yes, that's the only way I could get the motor low enough. I wouldn't get the motor low enough on this tire size with a 1mm offset pod. I said, I'm running, I think, more offset than a 1mm offset pod would give. And my motor's not low, seemingly. He said, no, you're the only team running that motor pod. And that motor pod has got a complete axle tube, hasn't it? I said, yeah. He said, well, if you look at the stock motor pod, if you like, the fixed offset pod, it's only got bearing carriers. It's not got that motor tube. And he says, it's not got those bits of metal underneath, those shims. I says, have you got those shims? Yeah, I've got those shims in. It needs those shims in to be anywhere close. He says, have you weighed those shims? I said, no. I had no time to do anything like that. I just built it. I just built it properly. I just made sure everything fitted and I built it properly. Well, post-race, I've weighed those shims. And, oh, sorry, we need to know the quantity. I'm overweight from the lightest car by about 2.3 grams total. And I'm thinking, where on earth can I find 2.3 grams? There's no way I can find 2.3 grams unless it's all in that motor pod. Or it could be in the shims. He was even pointing at my choice of guide screw and saying, is that guide screw steel? And I went, yeah. A lot of people are putting an aluminium guide screw in. I know, yeah, but hang on a minute. What's that really affecting? I mean, any weight there is not causing any side load that the back tires have to control. But I am adding weight to acceleration and I'm adding weight to braking. So a lighter car would have accelerated better and braked better, even if it was at the guide. So it was a case of I should have been looking absolutely everywhere for every decimal of a gram. And post-race, because I was still in Spain on Sunday night. I'd had a rest on Sunday afternoon, and I got the car back on the bench Sunday night. And yeah, those shims underneath the rear axle were 0.3 of a gram. And in reality, there weren't enough of them in. There should have been even more in there. So I weighed the additional shim that I should have had in there, and the whole lot added up to 0.45 of a gram. And then I took those shims away and I got some washers out my box and I put those on my scale. They didn't even register. They didn't weigh anything. Even me drug smuggler ones that measure to tiny amounts. They would not even create a number. So I just screwed those in and I went, I'm now 0.3 grams lighter right away. There were even cars that were not running suspension springs on the back of the motor pod. So I weighed the screw, the spring, and on those cars, the plastic nut that's made to go on top has got an elephant trunk that sits in a slot in the chassis. And that thing alone is, I can't remember the number now, but yeah, all those bits on the scale, I'm like, double that up. Well, there's potentially, 1/4 of a gram of suspension bits that I was running that some cars were not running. Now, don't get me wrong, we had fiddled around. We changed the springs on the side of the motor pod, and we thought we'd found some feeling of improvement from that, but it didn't turn into lap time. So we didn't do very well. We did a very good job of driving what we got. There were cars behind us in the race. I mean, once it began to play out a little bit, we kind of realized what teams we were actually in a race with or not. And there were teams that were behind us and they could do a lap. Their cars would do an 11-second lap. Their cars were capable of an 11. We got we got some pretty good drivers in our team, and none of us got an 11-second lap all weekend long. They were all 12 plus. And the race winning team, when you divide their number of laps into the number of hours that the race elapsed after the race, their average is 11.65. And that includes these tyre stops, which are 16, 17, 18-second laps. And I've seen on the scoreboard, I've seen 11.1s on the scoreboard. And we're like, we can't even get within a second of that. So we were absolutely nowhere, completely and utterly disappointed. And we think that we baked the problem into the car when we wrote the shopping list because we have specified that motor pod. Now, with a 1mm offset motor pod, if you just put the motor in, it's going to be too high. But we observed other teams fitting their motor to their car. And one of the things that we observed was people using those setup wheels that are little blocks.
Yeah.
They put those on the rear axle. Okay. They stand the car there. They put the motor into the motor pod. And then they put a shim underneath the motor on their setup plate. So they've got the spacer underneath the motor. They've got their wheels on a known diameter. They could be too big, but that just means you need a thicker shim.
Yeah.
And then they were pushing the motor down and locking the motor screws and fixing the height of the motor in relation to their rear axle. Now, the 1mm offset motor pod is supposed to do that for you.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to modify it. So we think we know how they must be flexing the regulations or taking advantage of what they're allowed to do, because you're allowed to deburr. And if by deburring you extend the location of a hole, for example, to get a motor screw to sit in a different place, then that might be how you get your motor a little bit lower. And you know, that little square that sits on the back of the motor, nobody's visually inspecting that or measuring that. So I guess you could manipulate that a little bit to get your motor lower. And you could do it all within the auspices of a 1mm offset pod. And we are, like I say, we were watching these teams 4 at a time, I think, around a big table. We'd all got one side of a table each. And we were all observed. And you're only supposed to have one team member at the table at any given time, according to the writing. But the whole table was surrounded with people all the time, like a crowd. And it was like, well, everybody's watching everybody else do it. So we may as well go and join them. So Yona and I were observing people doing this in this way. And we were like, that's what they're doing. I mean, the cars are running so low to the ground that although there was suspension fitted, if the suspension had any actual motion taking place in it, the chassis would have just hit the ground, because the chassis, the motor is. I think that there was a regulation for standard category that a 0.8mm spacer must fit underneath their motor at the start of the race, and so that was the kind of area where I set up the motor height with the adjustable offset pod at home. I actually ended up, I think, at about 0.7, expecting it to be close to what a standard car would have done. By standard, I mean running this grey chassis, the stock chassis that comes with the car. We were running the 3D printed because we were allowed to in Pro. They were running a 13-tooth pinion by regulation. We were allowed to run whatever pinion gear we liked. But they were running a 13 against a small spur, where we were running a 14 against nearly any of the spurs. We were in the middle. I think their spur was a 28, their smallest one, and we were running like a 30 and a 32. So our gear ratios were slightly different. Were also mandated to run on a 16.5 wheel, which made their wheel a bit bigger anyway, made their tire a bit bigger anyway. We could run the smaller wheel, which made our wheel a little bit smaller. I guess that made our motor ground clearance a little bit lower, even if we were using the same motor pods. But yeah, we had standard cars that were running circles around us, and we all made mistakes. We didn't decide to, right, okay, we're going to have to take a chance on finishing last here, and we need to keep changing that car until it works, in the hope that once it's working, we'll be able to catch back up and get some kind of result. We didn't do that. We just kept driving and driving and driving and driving on the basis that if the tires get small enough, the motor gets low enough, and the grip will come to us, and the sun might start to shine on us. But it never did. I got to 10:30 in the night in the dark, and I was like, we've been running these braids for hours and hours and hours now. We've never even cleaned the braids. And we'd cleaned the braids during practice. And I just cleaned the braids with a toothbrush with lighter fluid on. Just turn the car over, brush about 4 or 5 times down each braid, put the car back in the slot. I do that at the pit lane.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually allowed to do that at the pit lane because I've got to take the car to the table and do it at the table, and that's the process. So while I was doing it, I had my phone ready, and I picked up my phone and I took a photograph of the underneath of the car on my way back and put it back in the track, and then I walked away. I packed up my tools on the table, and then I opened the photograph and I took a look at what we got, and we got no splitter. We completely lost the front of the car. There was nothing ahead of the guide. It was gone. Like, we knew we got a crack in our splitter at the end of practice, but I glued it back together. And I was like, Yoda, anybody, any better suggestions? It actually says in the rules that you can only really use glue to glue your splitter. You can't reinforce. But by 10:30 at night and in the dark, the first time we actually stopped the car to have a good look at it, it had got no splitter on it. And we were like, holy cow, we're running around now with the front of the front body clip being the bumper. We have got to go in preservation mode. And we can, and we did, because we do not want to be repairing this car in the dark. Even though there are lights at the pit tables, we don't really want to be repairing this car in the dark. At the very least, we don't actually want to be repairing this car at all. And in truth, apart from that braid clean, the car was completely reliable. The light kit was reliable. We didn't break the body shell. We just kept doing. We kept the wing on throughout. It was just lap after lap after lap after lap, and that's because my drivers and myself and all of us, we all know you've got to do that if you're going to do any good. You can't have this car stopping for any repairs, otherwise you can count yourself out straight away. And we did it. We had rock solid reliability. But there's the human side. And I've talked about the car a bit, but I'd like to talk about the human side just as much because that's just as disastrous. I got there at we were all in for 7:45 on Saturday morning. By 10 a.m. Saturday morning, I've got the runs.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm on the WhatsApp to my Sean who's with us. She's our support crew. I said, can you get me some medication for the runs, please? I need it ASAP. I've got driving duties to do. I'm scheduled to do an hour. I've already been twice. And yeah, that was yeah. Now we looked at the timetable and how many rotations of going through the lanes there was going to be and all of that. And we discovered and realized that each driver was only going to get a maximum off time of 3 hours or 4 hours because we were going to drive for an hour, marshal for an hour, and then be spotter for an hour, which is there to repair the car, talk to the driver or listen if the driver needs to be able to do something. So we've got 4 drivers doing an hour each of driving, and there's only one actual spare hour in that rotation, which is fine while you're awake. But if you're going to try and get some sleep, you've got to give that driver the opportunity to come off, skip marshalling, skip being spotter, and use the spare hour he's scheduled to get some sleep. And on the rotation of things, we were going to get four windows for sleep. And bearing in mind that the race is going to finish tomorrow morning and we're all going to want to sleep at night, if we're going to have any discipline at all, somebody needs to be trying to go to bed in the afternoon. Now, I took that opportunity or tried to take that opportunity, and we had nowhere to sleep. we're on a concrete floor. We've got a gazebo that's got our name on it, but there's just enough traffic and enough general noise level and what thing and the lights are on and la di da da da. We got no provision for anywhere to sleep. So
Yeah.
another thing that we encouraged that we got Sean to do was grab a single mattress and a couple of pillows out of our accommodation, chuck them in the hire car, and bring them to the track. And we set that up in the back far corner of the building where we thought there might be a chance of getting some rest. Well, I went and did that, but no, I didn't sleep. So that was me in the afternoon. Later on, Yona went, and I think he did get some rest. But I was hanging. By the time the middle of the night came, I was properly hanging because I'd had a really, really rough night's or virtually absent night's sleep on the Thursday night through to Friday. And that was just being in Spain at 36-degree temperatures, ambient, 36 degrees C, which I think, did I tell you it was 98 or something, Michael? I converted it to F. Did I say it was 98? Yeah, 98 F, which we're not built for. We're not accustomed to.
Nope.
And so that made sleeping difficult the night before. By the time the late evening came along, I was lying on that mattress going, guys, I can't carry on. I'll do me driving, but I just can't do me marshalling and spottering. You're gonna have to let me because I'm already walking funny. I'm feeling drunk. I went to lie down and the loud music began because right outside the door, there's a restaurant with a pool outside. And the pool was the scene for what appeared to be a birthday party. And they were banging loud music right outside the door until 1 a.m. in the morning, their time. So two of us were trying to get some sleep basically in a disco. And that threw us for six. The next day, Sunday came around. We finished the race. We got the photographs and la da 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 da. We went home and collapsed into bed. And Yona had managed to get some sleep. He went out for a walk. He spent about an hour and a half out. And by Saturday evening, he got my problem from Saturday morning. Plus, he was chucking it up. He was coming out of both ends by Saturday night. Okay? That was Saturday night. We think that was sunstroke, right? Because one of the things we hadn't accounted for was the amount of fluids that we were meant to be drinking. And so it was like, Sean, our water bottles are all empty. Can you bring us just an industrial pack of? So she brought us multiples of 1.5 liters. I drank 2 of those whilst I was in there. I don't drink 1.5 liters a day of water out of a water bottle, but I drank 2 of those whilst I was in that building for 24 hours. And I come out, and I never needed to go to the toilet. By the way, the runs did clear up by Saturday afternoon. Yes, I'd done some driving stints where I was kind of holding my stomach, and I was like, "This hurts. This is just awful." But yeah, Saturday night, Yona went down, and since I've got home, or since the boys went home, Oscar's gotten ill in the same way. We've all been hit by just being in Spain in July. It was so tough, and we did. It was so disappointing because we had such much higher hopes, and we know we're capable of a lot more. And now we've learned what we think we've learned what we need to do, because just being there and there came a point where I couldn't. I mean, obviously, I can't hear what race control's saying, but they're running the event in the terms of the timeline. But I just kept walking up to race control. As soon as something had stopped, I would go up to race control and say, "What's next? What happens next? What happens next?" And it was literally being walked through the event by a friendly local sort of thing. In fact, most of the time, the man who I was speaking to was actually Ivan Bassas, the man the scale auto man, and he kind of knows me because he met me at Slot Car Festival, and I think we've been in touch once since then, directly person to person. But he's not an easy man to get in touch with. But he was the first local to come up to me whilst I was at the meeting and shook me hand, welcomed me, and he said, "Is this woman here with you?" I said, "Yes, she is." He said, "Well, in that case, can you look after the ladies' toilet key for the whole 24 hours? Because there's going to be a couple, probably three." And so throughout the whole race, the ladies were coming in whenever a lady needed a toilet, they would come into our tent to get the key, to return the key, and la da 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 da. So that we were the host for the ladies' key because we got a lady with us. But yeah, oh, it was so tough. And I've probably spoken for more than 50 minutes now.
Yep.
But it was a big it was a big deal story, big event,
Yeah.
big disappointment, big lesson.
I was gonna say you learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely learned a lot. And if I hadn't had that chat with the tech inspector, I may very well have come home not knowing exactly what was wrong. Although the one thing that we could identify was that our car was too high. It didn't sound like the other cars going down the straights. Ours was much, much quieter. When the tires did come down in diameter, it didn't really gain enough, but it gained a little bit of perceptible performance, but the wear rate was incredibly low. We went until there was only 6 hours remaining of driving on one pair of tires. So that's more than 10 hours. We're about 10 hours of driving on the first pair of tires. We were so scared to change them because we thought they were going to ruin the car by doing it. We were going to go and try and get to the end on one pair, but we switched. We drove lane number 9, which is a gutter, and the same driver moved to lane 11. And I sat down and looked at this timing screen, and he was doing 14-second laps. And I 3 or 4 of them, and I thought, well, you can have a crash. A quick crash a very quick crash might be a 14, but this driver's not having 4 of them in a row. So I turned around, went to the pit lane, called up to my driver, asked him, "Is there a problem?" He says, "Yeah, it seems to be dragging. It seems to be dragging." Well, I never watched the car, but our marshal was watching the car. It came round to me. I walked back to the pit table. Oh no, I'm wrong. I went and selected a pair of tires because I thought that might be the problem. I went and selected a pair of tires, recovered the car from the pit lane, took it to the table, inspected it, couldn't find anything wrong, trusted that the dragging was the problem, fitted a new pair of tires, put it on the track, and for the remaining, I'm wrong, it wasn't 6 hours, it was 4 hours because, no, it was 3.5 because Oscar drove half an hour with that car, then I drove it for an hour, then Daniel for an hour, and then Yona for an hour. And on that new pair of tires, all of us did our personal bests, not just lap time, but lap totals. We were, instead of doing a 123 lapper in 28 minutes, we were now doing 130, 135. Still nowhere near where we needed to be. But for some reason, on that second pair of tires, the car just improved. And we can't explain that.
Yeah. I mean, at the very
But
least, it should have been the same at the beginning of your previous set of tires.
And it should have just kept getting better, but it didn't really get better. It got a little bit better, but it didn't get better enough to be good. And it still didn't make the same sounds as the other cars got. And we think that by the time the tires were that small that the motor was actually low enough, there was no pliability left in the rubber because it was so damn thin that it would just skid anyway and not actually have any forgiveness in the, no flex left in the rubber.
Yeah.
I've got the tires, I've built them up, I've measured them, and I've even weighed them because I can identify the tires in pairs by putting them on my scales. The lightest ones are the ones we raced, and the ones that I can compare them to new pair, and and I can do it with weight now. I don't know if that's a good way to choose a pair of tires in the first place, but yeah, there's still a lot of measuring and understanding to do. But I felt like on Sunday night, once I'd had a good look around the car and I'd put some more axle offset in and taken out those steel shims and had a look at the car again, I thought to myself, can I get back in there tomorrow and run this car again and prove to myself it's capable of an 11-second lap? So I looked at the opening times for the shop, and Monday is closed, just all day closed. Every Monday. I was like, I don't even have a contact number for anybody that I could ring them and ask them for a favor. And that's a mistake that I made. I didn't come away with, you know, a phone number for Ivan Bassas, which, would have been a bit of a privilege, I imagine, but I didn't even ask. Anyway, that was our weekend.
Well, if anybody has any questions for Wayne,
Well, yeah, anything
if he didn't
specific,
if he didn't say
cover
if he
it.
managed to
Yeah.
forget something, now's the time to
Has
ask
he been,
questions.
has he been talking for 1 hour?
Most
Probably.
of it.
I was
Oh,
invited
shit.
though,
I invited him. I knew what I was getting into.
but it's worth it, Gio, because
We
this,
gotta-
this it
we
was
gotta-
such a long, arduous, bloody journey with so much.
I saw basically, but I felt your emotions, your first video when you're right, oh, this is cool. And then the night one where you say everybody's overtaking us.
Mm,
And so I felt that basically, yeah. But yeah, anyway, I think you guys, I don't know, what was the final
We
score?
finished we finished in 18th place.
18 place
Out of
18th,
20.
yeah.
out of?
20.
Okay. I
Not
mean,
much.
okay, but anyway, it's kind of a learning curve, right? I think you guys are gonna kick us as the next.
And you can learn
next
literally everything about what happened by rewinding for an hour.
I know. I was
Yeah,
late.
but Gio, Gio's got,
I'm-
Gio does want to talk to me. He'll probably have a private call with me at some time, I imagine.
Yeah.
Wayne,
let's-
where did you eat food? Did you eat there at the event or at the hotel? Like when
Yeah.
you travel for sports, you always bring your own food with you. What are you doing?
I'm not flying with a baggage full of food. No, it's Sean support crew. Actually, I should thank Sean publicly, because if we couldn't have done it without somebody that was able to run around and look after us. There was a mobile cabin selling cans of pop, packets of crisps, and chocolate bars outside the building for most of the event, but there was nothing within walking distance that we could get food. What happened was, and no provision. They've actually missed a trick, in my opinion, when they've got 5 times 20 people in that room for 24 hours. They're missing a trick by not providing food and making more money off the back of that, quite honestly. But
they don't need maybe that money.
there were people were having Deliveroo, KFC, and we asked Sean. Sean came to us with a couple of pizzas, and that got us through the night. If you don't mind eating cold pizza, we just left.
I mean, you really don't care, right? At that stage, I think you're just focusing. You just need basically stuff to sustain you to go through.
That's what yeah. That and
yeah.
to teach
I mean,
yourself
I
to
never
drink.
tasted I think maybe something that tastes so good was when I did the 24 hours digital in 2017, and there was this guy selling basically some kind of baguettes with some sausages and ketchup. I mean, normally that stuff I would never even touch with a barge pole, but shit, it tasted good in the early morning after basically going through all the mess. Yeah. Anyway,
What finally cured your trots?
Medicine.
Oh, Imodium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
hey,
It should be in every pit box.
In
Yeah.
everybody's slot car pit box when they're doing endurance races. Yeah. But
Did you-
basically, it was about the fact that we were in this foreign country in climate conditions that we weren't prepared for. I mean, for goodness sake, Yona came in a pair of jeans and had no alternative.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but that's Iona. I mean, you know, I don't even know if he's gonna change his shorts or his underwear.
But none of us were writing in the WhatsApp group of the team to say, "Hey, remember to bring your shorts. Remember to bring your suntan cream." You know, none of us are reminding one another about these basic human elements. We all presume that we've got it covered for ourselves, but you know, the guy's 20 years old and probably thinks he's invincible. Well, he got beaten down by Sunday night. He was ill. You
Heat
know,
stroke.
I think so.
But so there was no air conditioning inside the building.
It's in Europe.
Yeah.
When
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, okay, yeah.
they are better equipped for it over there than we are. They've got electric shutters that run down outside of their windows. All the windows in the house that we hired all open inwards. I've never seen that in a window frame in the UK. I've never seen houses and businesses that look closed. All the window shutters are down. They look uninhabited. And then you come to a restaurant or a shop or something, a takeaway, for example, and you go in there and you find it's full and you think, where did all these people come from? You're not seeing anybody walking out on the streets.
Underground.
Yeah, so it's they know how to operate in the hot weather far
Well,
better.
it's the humidity that gets you. It's like the conditions that I live in out here.
Not necessarily. I mean, so there are like when I lived in Sicily, depending where you go, I mean, there is the internal part of the island that are more kind of they are dry as the weather is dry, but still, I mean, when it's a 42 or 45 degrees Celsius, man, if it's gonna kill you. And then the worst part is in the evening that the temperature can drop really quickly. So you need to be kind of prepared and know a bit. But anyway,
Well, you
okay.
know, there's a thing that I see on the continent a lot, which I don't see over here in the UK all that often, which is the pharmacy sign, which is an illuminated green cross. And in the center of it, it's showing the clock and the temperature, the time of day and the temperature, and they alternate. And I saw one of those at 40C.
40C. Okay, but that's
40C.
that's okay.
I mean, that's the only time I've ever personally experienced that was in Egypt. And Egypt is bone dry. Absolutely bone dry.
yeah. I've
Whereas
experienced even more. Yeah.
this country, I mean, the part of Spain that I was in was not as arid as Malta, for example, or Greece. I've been on the islands, some of the Greek islands, and they look more barren. But this is green. It's not as green as Belgium, Holland, you know, or nothing like the UK. But I
Well,
can,
that's 115 degrees Fahrenheit for those of us this
oh
side of
yeah,
the pond.
yeah,
That's,
40.
I don't think a crazy temperature for you guys as well. I mean, the US,
No, that's
there
pretty
are
hot.
parts where,
Anything
yeah,
over
but
100
it's,
for us is
yeah,
hot.
but at least you have air conditioning blasting everywhere.
That's
I mean,
cool.
Yeah.
you have places where basically even the ATM machines, basically you can go with the car.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
my
don't have
dog
such a
house
thing
has
in
air
Europe.
conditioning, so I don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I
We
know,
got-
I know. We have a lot to learn from you guys.
Well,
One
our
major,
climate, my climate is basically the same as the UK, and barely anybody in this area has air conditioning. And because of the climate change, people are putting in air conditioning. We got air conditioning in our house a couple of years ago, and I love having air conditioning. But
oh no.
you just didn't need it for, before 5, 10 years ago. It just wasn't. It was a waste
Well,
of
I
money.
was reading the bits of paper that was sellotaped to the door of the fridge, and one of them was it said, "Please don't alter the air conditioning level, because if you do, it might freeze up and run all the time and all the rest of that, and you'll basically cause it problems if you do. Please
Yeah.
leave it on 24. Okay, 24C. Now, here in the UK, in the winter, we don't even set our heating to be 24. We set it at 20, 20-ish, 21-ish. If it's 20 to 21 degrees, we're happy. But over there, they're running their air conditioning to be at 24. And that feels comfortable. So I've come back from Spain only yesterday, and I'm walking around outside today, and I'm catching up with people, and they're saying, "Isn't it hot?" And I'm going, "No, actually, I've just come back from where I've been, and over there, their air conditioning's set to this temperature. I'm walking around outdoors in the UK like it's air conditioned everywhere."
Yep.
So I was already clearly beginning to acclimatize in some way that it feels a little bit strange to be back here and everybody's telling me it's hot when it's not. It's so weird. One major success that we did have was the hire car, because we booked a hire car from the airport and it was a Ford Kuga, Kuga, or similar. And when we got there, they gave us a completely brand new Dacia Bigster, which is not a car I'm familiar with.
That's not a
It's
real car name. What are you talking about? You just made that up.
Dacia,
No,
D-A-C-I-A.
he didn't.
Now, a DACIA is a Romanian manufactured car that's essentially Renault through and through. Renault electronics, Renault engines. It's basically a Romanian Renault. And the Bigster is effectively a replica of a Range Rover.
Yep. Big old SUV.
It's a big old SUV. And we could fit everybody's luggage, and easily a single mattress. We didn't do it all at once, but when we were like, "We need a place to sleep. Can you bring us a mattress, please, little lady?" That's, you know what I
Okay,
mean? Can
let's
you?
not
And she did
rehash.
it. She did it
Let's
in the
let's
Range.
let's go ahead and get some other topics going here,
Yeah,
especially
let's
now that
go.
we've veered into weather. I think we're done. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any show and tell? Do you want to show and tell? Slot car related show and tell. What you got, Gio?
It's a weather related. I'm in
Oh no,
Singapore.
okay, I'm muting.
No, I just would like to share a small. I mean, it's not really a show and tell. Basically, you just have to trust me. So why
Yeah.
would you trust a
As
Sicilian
long
man?
as
I
it's
don't know,
slot cars,
but
I'm good.
it's a slot car related. So,
Okay.
so Chris has been, or better, we have been providing some feedback to Chris on NES about the text to speech conversion messaging, and there's been quite a lot of improvement. So the messages are now kind of shorter, but also provide much more on-point information. So your engineer is really telling you when someone else is overtaking you, or someone is taking the lead, the car behind you. And there's also some kind of more precise information about damage control. So when you get to, for instance, two damage points, basically your engineer will tell you, now you have 2 damage points. One will tell you, drive carefully. And then when you're out of damage control, will give you a message like, "Oh, you broke your steering wheel, so you need to, or the steering column, whatever. You need to bring the car back into the pit," with a kind of also every 15 seconds of repeating in case. So there have been some kind of improvements on that front that is becoming really super immersive. So you need to get a proper headset or headphones for your phone in order to hear just your messages. But it's something that we have been digital guys at least have been doing for quite a while, and is really getting to really close to basically to what we kind of been looking for so long. So if you manage to test or have opportunity to test that latest version, please do so. And Greg, you are part of the beta testing, is that correct? But you have no time. Okay, yeah.
It's not that I don't have time. I've been doing other things.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Have you
that's
got the
all.
access though, Greg? Has he given you?
I do. I just haven't.
Yeah.
It's not on high on my priority list for.
Yeah.
these days. So I'm looking forward to it. It sounds awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all. I just want to basically keep people in the loop. And if I'm, so as I said, I'm in Singapore at the moment. So I hook up with the guys from Vincent and, with Vincent mainly, the current owner of the club. And I see whether I can manage to do some testing with the NES, because I have my machine. I have also my dongle. So I would like to see whether.
Is that where you were racing last year in Singapore? Did you have like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
met with
correct.
some
It's the
shop?
same. Yeah, same place. Yeah.
So their shop's still going, they're still racing, doing well,
They're still going. I
as far
don't
as you
know
know. Yeah.
how they're going. I know that they've now a bit more classes that with the kind of regulations as well that they've shared with me. So I assume that things are still moving in the right direction.
When are you getting
So
together with them, Gio?
say again.
When are you getting together with them?
A Saturday. So the idea was to do a couple of so basically to do two races. So a Group C and a GT3, sideways only GT3, and but because my kind of travel arrangement basically changes, so we move it to Saturday, and then we're focusing just on one class. So we're racing a GT3, the sideways, and basically running the Ferrari that I think yeah, I run at Paul Ricard. The only
Yeah.
difference is they're using like a weird motor that is a slotted long can, the 21.5. And so I think I have lots of motors NSR, but for this one I have just one. Is also shit. So basically, it's not even like a 21.5. After all the running is like 21.2 or 21.3. So I'm already starting kind of not with the ideal kind of situation, but it's just fun. I mean, I don't, yeah, it's gonna be. I want to just basically do a bit of racing on polycar.
And you're going to get them to have a go with Ness, or but by arrangement, you've already set it up that you're going to run a bit of Ness, I guess.
I hope that I can go. So Friday they're gonna do a bit of a maintenance on the track. So if I can go there a bit early, so like a late afternoon, let's say before the actual practice session in the evening, I will see whether we could run in. I can demonstrate in the
Cool.
Sounds cool.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks for the update. Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I went on vacation 2 weeks ago, but right before I did, I bid on something in the UK, and it came here. It was kind of hard to find. It's a white kit for the HSV Honda.
Oh,
I know, the whole white kit, everything ready to go, and I got a bargain on it because I just kind of threw a junk bid on there, thinking there's no way I'll get it. But then it arrived from the UK, so that's what I'm working on right now. I'll get
Does
the
it-
painting.
does
What's
it
that?
have the early chassis? What kind of okay?
I
Good.
don't know.
New
No,
chassis.
that's a new one.
That's the new one. Yeah, good.
Oh, I just wanted to see how the green pod handles because I haven't seen it yet.
Ah,
And then I just like
Like
Honda.
shit.
That's my thing. Does it handle like shit?
So I think one of the problem with this car, with this gray chassis, is that you're
Yeah.
gonna have some problem with it. It's too soft, and you might have a problem with the binding in the front axle because the posts move a bit too much. That's my impression. But so there is a kind of, you feel the car that is always like struggling to get speed or something like that, especially around corner. But
One
I'll
or,
take a look and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one or two of the standard class runners at the weekend with the grey chassis for the Cadillac were telling me that you can attempt to straighten them, flatten them in the usual way, but they will return to their original packet shape. So if you get one that's flat out the packet, you're onto a winner.
the other thing that I
I'll,
want to say is, if some of the manufacturer listening, I mean, so that car that you have, I think, is from the Japanese GT class, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that those cars, even like the current ones, and especially the current ones, I mean, they are so cool and they're very nice livery. Will be in very nice class because also I think they try to standardize, so there is no huge difference between the different cars. It's like a bit like a DTM, so
Yeah.
like it was in Europe. So it will be such a cool class to do, and nobody's basically kind of exploiting that thing. I mean, it's kind of amazing to me. But anyway,
Are there not enough models in that category?
there are 3 or 4 different models because they are basically the big Japanese manufacturers. But then you have like tons of different liveries, very cool liveries.
Mm.
So because at the end of the day, yeah. So
And I
if
think
you
some
have
of
a
those
free
cars,
car,
I think some of those cars are the same. Like if Toyota has their TRD race division, they might also have a Lexus which would be essentially the same style, just painted with Lexus. So that would give you more liveries to make.
Hmm.
I don't know who Nissan is, but
I think the Nissan GTR was in that racing in 1-to-1 scale, and that's a
Yeah, I think
record
they're
from the
still
classic
racing
too.
but
there.
like from
They're
the
still
90s,
racing
right?
there.
I think the series is called Super GT.
That's correct.
Correct. And I think they're on different club because there is a GT 500. So there are several classes within the same race. So they have a kind of a good, healthy grids for what I can see. But anyway.
But instead, we'll get another Porsche 917 Le Mans era, and somebody will make that. And
Yeah, they did. I don't know. Yeah, Slot
there's 15 different of those. And it's like, okay, thank you. You know what is actually interesting? Oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
He's
Or,
gonna
sorry.
talk about digital, so then you're gonna leave.
He's gonna have a problem with digital. All right.
Yeah.
You want to do your club corner, Mike?
Well, actually, I was going to, I can do a segue afterwards. I was going to show this chassis that I've got. Well, show you the car first. This is the winning car from one of my races this weekend, which is an old Scale Extract
Maserati.
MC20 Maserati. And I pitted it against Pagani Huayras. And this thing is a tank and was a piece of crap. But I changed it by mounting two rods alongside of it to a brass piece in the back, and then mounting the body shell to that. And it turned out really well. I was actually
So basically,
surprised.
is it
We-
is it piano wire or brass
Yeah,
wire?
it's piano wire.
So it's also flexible. Do you have like a suspension as
Yeah.
well?
Well, yeah, there's it's not really suspension. It's the pod is slightly loose.
Yeah.
But it actually runs better when it's more tight than loose. So
No,
it
no.
actually
But okay, even if you tied up the pod, right? So front and back, is it not does not the piano wire give you a bit of flexibility to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's why I think it's better to have the pod. Screw tight, and then let the piano wire do a bit of its magic.
Right. Well, this is the original chassis
Yeah.
with just a hole cut in the center of it, and the rear part of it is on the body. The rear part of the chassis is on the body there, and you can see the little piece that was glued in the back to mount the body onto mount the chassis onto the body. So,
Yeah.
but it works surprisingly well. I set it against the Pagani Huayra Scale Extrics, which are really pretty quick cars out of the box for Scale Extric with a set of tires. So that was really good. Anyway, I will put up the photos for oops, come on. Why don't my fingers work?
Well,
Coated
maybe you
in
should ask
superglue,
someone
no
else
doubt.
than us.
Coated in super glue. Permanently.
No.
Yeah, with the super
Okay.
glue, basically, my kind of finger recognition stuff does not work.
There you go.
Well, we can see John.
Okay, there you can see the Paganis that it was running against. Shiggy and I were neck and neck for quite a while. It moved back and forth. I got punted off quickly in the first 10 laps and then had to play makeup. I could pull him, but I couldn't pass him. So I had to do it on fuel savings. So I managed to do that, and by the end of it, I had a good lead out of him. So a good 4-lap lead. And then the second race we did was the Volvo 850. And that was a trial. I spent probably about 10 hours getting that thing so it would run at all. at any kind of reasonable speed. And I ended up dremeling the roof and all kinds of stuff to get it down there, and a ton of weight. The Volvo weighs 30 grams more than the other cars.
30
It's
grams.
just, yeah, 30
I
grams.
mean, where is coming? I mean,
It's
the interior.
the thing is so tall and so narrow that it needed a ton of weight put in it in order to keep it from flipping over.
Yeah.
That's 30 grams of safety, my friend.
Yeah, depending where you. Yeah. Okay, so you added the 30 grams more.
Yes, I added the 30
Ah,
grams.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
I thought that the car out of the box is 30 grams more.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of modification to the glass on it. I cut the top mount of the glass down to the absolute minimum, and then I dremeled out the roof as much as I could, and it actually made a big difference. There was really so it was competitive with the RS 500. The fastest of those four cars was actually the BMW.
BMW in the back. I
Yeah.
was about to comment on that. Why would
Yeah.
that not win?
Pardon me?
The driver.
My question was, why would that one at the back not win?
Because of the driver.
Uh-huh.
Basically, Joe is learning, but he hasn't quite got it yet. And Shiggy had a hell of a time with the RS 500. It was just because that one in particular has got one of those green motors in it from a stock, and it's really, really quick. And of course, both of those RS 500s are pretty narrow.
They're very narrow.
Yeah.
I know.
So-
I know that.
Shiggy just cannot stop just thumping it out of the corners all the time. That's his style. I mean, he's
You
so
mean the-
used to driving 124 scale cars where you go into the corner as hard as you possibly can, stop on a dime, and then go through the corner, and you don't. With this, you can't do that. And so he has trouble whenever he's got a high-powered car. I'm actually fixing some of the Maseratis I've got now for that reason, because he just can't drive them. So anyway, he had the same problem with that. And so I managed to pull off a win. I was slower by about half a second at least than the other cars. But I was consistent and solid on it. So I managed to pull off a win. So I was happy with that. There's the results. You can see I did a 4-lap on that one too. So I was pretty happy with that. Anyway, that's all I got.
Nice.
Alrighty.
I mean, so you complain about the Ford. These are Ford Sierras.
Yeah, it's a Sierra RS 500. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like those ones should be pitched against the BMW, right?
No, that BMW is a lot later than
Yeah, the
RS5.
BMW is a lot
No,
later.
okay,
It's
not
a-
the BMW that was on the
Yeah,
track.
you're on about the
The old
320,
one.
I think.
Yeah,
The
this is
320.
basically the other car that Maurizio is bringing out.
Right.
So
the three-
Yeah.
and they're even narrower than that Ford.
Right. It wasn't strictly the same years that they were running together for sure. But it was the only BTCC car that I had that had a comparable lap time to the others. And even that was half a second faster than what we were going. So, I figured if I gave it to Joe, he'd be off the track enough that it wouldn't make that much difference. and give him a chance. I mean, I told him ahead of time, I said, you got the fastest car by half a second. So if you go slower, you'll be fine. And he was picking it up at the end. It was really funny to try and keep him from knocking me off. His tendency is to just run as fast as he can because he's a analog racer. And I had to remind him periodically, he's like, if you want to go around, you gotta get in the other lane. So, but it was good fun. We all had a good time and they enjoyed themselves. And interestingly enough, I discovered something this weekend. GT3 cars now have a classic version. The first GT3 cars that were out when Stefan Rattel started the series are now in a point where they're their classic cars. So I think it's 30 years, if I remember correctly. I'm not positive on that, but it's been quite a while. So now I can dig out the old ones and put them in a separate GT3 class.
I've
So
been thinking about
the
I also think about something similar, but doing with the old NSR GT3
Yeah.
cars.
yeah, the 996
Old.
and 997 Porsches and
The old Corvette, the old R8.
right, right. You can do all of those cars. So or the Aston Martins, those two. Yeah, so that'll be another GT3 class that I've got going on. So good fun.
All right, Jeremy, what you got?
Yeah, I showed on the show last time I was on the AFX track that I had got,
Yeah.
and I used Jim's technique of taking a copper bar and going over the rails. And that kind of, what that does is it's interesting is when you have pitting on the rails, when you rub copper over it, the pitting almost becomes copper colored. I don't know what it's doing, but
Filling
I mean
it.
that helped. What's that?
It's filling it.
Yeah.
Is it? Maybe it helped, but then the real helper was inox. Once I started moving inox, and cleaning the whole track, then the car just went around like and they still 7 days later I haven't cleaned it, but they still go around no problem.
Yeah.
Then I got into where I'm thinking about doing the layouts. There's 17 different tracks you can build. Suzuka, Japan, Italy. And if I put those together, I need the largest I'm going to need is a 5-foot wide by 10-foot long track, which I think I can do like a 5x5 sheet that folds up, and then just lay it out on a table, put the track out. And with that idea, I started going online looking for parts you can get 3D printable stuff that's free. So my plan here is to take, hopefully you guys can see this without me getting in the way. So I found this is three different things combined. So these here were free, but they kind of stood out on the outskirts of the track. So what I did was I took those and then I combined on the bottom a way to lock in the track so it doesn't flex when you're going around, and so I took that guy's parts. This guy, there's basically 3 different designers here I should credit. I haven't released the file or anything, but then it just kind of locks it down. I'm going to put a hole in here to keep it locked, and then I'll keep it on this one sheet, and I've got it orange now. I haven't decided, but this will be my pit lane because I want to try the pit lanes where you have sensors at front and back.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a few other tracks do that, and I was like, oh, this is a good time for me to try it. But once this plate gets locked down, this will be like the key to where everything else starts. If I'm going to build Suzuka, I'm going to have to just set this on the table and then start plugging it in and locking it in.
Yeah.
So that's the plan right now. We'll see how it goes. There's only been 3 or 4 guys in the club that are interested, but I thought it'd be a fun alternative for just screwing around. And then I'll probably give out prizes, like for Italy, give out some spaghetti sauce, or Japan, maybe some sushi or something. We'll figure out something fun to do with it.
Yeah, and that track could be your power, your controller.
I have the DeFalco controller hookup coming. He's got he's got that thing you plug in, and I'm gonna wire that all in. I'll wire this all in with my LEDs, have it one piece just to move, plug in, and be ready. That's the plan.
Nice. That's a good idea.
Maybe we'll see.
Your track type there is AFX, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when you click that together, you've got to establish that all the little squares pop back up. That's some of them don't fit together too well, and they leave the square low. So get the right, to get them, if they're working right, they'll pop back up flat.
Yeah.
It seems to be the key to getting the AFX to go together well. We used to race on that at the Derby Club when I was 2005 back to 2008 kind of time.
Yeah.
I was weekly on that stuff. It's yeah.
Well, I don't think it'll replace the 1/32 scale. That's my favorite, but I just wanted a fun little diversion. See how it goes.
Continuity's pretty good in it. It's we had power tracks, we had the jumpers, but we used to lay some really long layouts, 4-lane layouts, 100 and whatever feet, 100 plus feet, some of them quite long. But it's quite good for continuity.
Yeah, so far it's been fun. So that's what I'm working on. I'll get further along. I'll post more.
Looking forward to it. All right, Gio.
Gio's eyelids look heavy.
Gio fell asleep.
Well, yeah, he's sharing.
You guys can see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this was the race that we did this week on Monday. So this is qualifying. So I'm showing through the website that Chris implemented for sharing results. So what you see is a qualifying. So managed to get Paul, followed by James, and then Jan. You go to the charts. So I use the same trick as James basically used, which is starting the qualify with very low fuel, like I don't know if I had maybe 40%. And I think that's where I may have done my best lap. And then what is no, sorry, was the last one. It's green means fast. So I think on this stuff where I got the best pace, the best lap. And then you can see also the other one, James and Jan, and so on and so forth. Position charts. No, maybe it was on the first stint. So here, yeah, you can see that I think the first one to got proper pole was first Jan, and then I came up, and then I kind of stayed until the end of qualifying, and then James got Jan in the second part of the qualifying session, although they might be that they were really close at the end. Then we moved on to first race. So yeah, manage. So basically, I win all the races, but I think a couple there was some kind of a bit of a. I made some mistakes, let's say that not that there were kind of issues specifically with the system. So the race was mainly we started with a bit of wetness, but we all got with the soft tires because it was below the 35% of wetness, so which means the dry tires will work best. And for most of it was a dry. Position chart. So yeah, I mean there wasn't a big context here. So I got to the lead and maintained the lead until the end. So this was a smooth sailing. The main battle was between second and third, between James and Jan. So there was a lot of back and forth, especially at the beginning. And then I think here was when during the first bunch of pit stops, and then James basically maintained the lead. P5 green down here. This is our new guy Sean. So his lap basically been kind of improved. I think there was a bunch of races where he managed to go over 100, which is 100 laps, which is good. So he's getting the truck, and yeah, the car is still like powered 87%, let's say, compared to the full power. So he has like less power than others, but there are a bunch of times when I'm going around to overtake him, and he's kind of competitive for some bits of the track, and then he comes off because he tried to race you, but he's getting there, improving every night. Then so race 1, then race 2. Again, this is I want this race again. Terms of charts, so this was a bit messier, let's say, in terms of track conditions. So it changed across the race, and the basically becoming dry at the end. And we see the position charts. Again, not much context here, and a bit more stable between the second and the third. In these guys, I think James did a kind of bit of mess up with the tires here, and to kind of pit again, and then where I think got third. Then I believe so. This is race 3. Demo positions. Yeah, so this was a kind of a race that I suffered a bit. I mean, I think this was like the because of track conditions, so I didn't know which tires to put, and kind of had the wrong. I mean, I bet that the track was improving in terms of wetness, but I just kind of managed to ruin a pair of soft tires, so I had to kind of repeat, and there was a kind of this back and forth until basically then I managed to have. Second part of the race where the stabilizer was a bit in a better position. And again, like huge battle between Jan and James across all the race. And apparently here also a bit of battling between Combi and Sean, the new guy. So which is good. Let's see the overview. How many laps? So yeah, so this was like kind of I had I don't remember if I had to repair or change tires. In fact, I mean I finished with kind of we're on the same lap with James, and I end up basically finish in the pit, and James was coming around and he was on the main straight. So if had kind of and then the race stopped. If he had crossed the start finish line and having like another bunch of seconds, I think it could have basically got P1. Yeah, so basically that was kind of a bunch of mistakes that I did in pit stop. So yeah, if you don't plan your strategy right, then even like a 40 minutes, you can play in a 40 minutes race as well. So this one is completely darkness. So again, won this race. So this was basically there was no story. It was wet all the way through. And in terms of position chart, I think that there was just a bit of battling at the beginning because the last race we do reverse grid, and Jan and James especially, they are pretty good in they start nowadays, and they're able to go navigate through traffic. But then, yeah, second part of the race, I think there was, I mean, I kind of got into the lead and maintaining with that we got big issues. Here again, there was a bit of battle between P4 and P5, which is good to see Sean starting to get close to Mike with the M4. And that's it. Yeah, so it was a pretty, quite, nothing kind of major. The software performing really, really well. The new messages that are much kind of shorter and more on point. I think it's a good bonus, added bonus to the overall experience. So yeah, we are really enjoying the software. I mean, and the fact that Chris also listened to our feedback is a big bonus as well.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's nice when the developer is active.
Yes, and I hope that he will maintain this passion for the system. There might be some other kind of, I don't know, he's maybe thinking to go analog as well, so support analog with the software. But that's I think is gonna be he will have to see how to interface, I think. But he might be cooking something along those lines. We'll see.
Yep. Cool beans. Anything else? Anybody else got any show and tells or club corners they want to talk about? No? Okay. Well, floor's open. As long as it's slot car related.
Floor is open. Have you seen the new Revo slot Ford Mustang?
Mustang.
The
Yeah.
actual
Now that-
photos, not the
The actual
diagram.
photos, yeah. Not, I haven't seen the actual model in hand, so
If you got one to pop up, that'd be cool.
I don't have one off the top of my hand. I was just thinking about that class, is that kind of IMSA 77 to 87. It's an odd choice, but now they have 3 cars for that, so it's kind of nice to have something besides just GT or Formula.
Gotta find some good pictures.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, you get the Porsche, what is it, 934?
Yep. And
the
the
Mazda
RX-7.
RX-7, and
Yeah.
then yeah. So
Like Greg's found us a picture.
maybe.
These are what you're talking
Oh,
about,
it's
right?
that
Yeah,
one.
those are what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't know why, but that 7-Eleven car is calling to me, and I'm not really big on Fords. I did get the Mazda, but
It should be a fun new class. I mean, you can't go wrong with Revo slot, honestly.
No, there's so much plug and play.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
some
yeah.
of the easiest cars. You don't have a lot of tuning to do on them. I mean, you can.
These look nice and wide and low and
Well, the nice thing is they go into this area here where it's kind of an unknown series, or they're not competing with all the other GTs. There's NSR slotted. There's 7 different GT brands a club could pick. Here's something that only they would have right now. That's kind of, I like seeing that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So I'll definitely be getting them.
There was
I wouldn't expect an RX-7 to keep up with one of these, would it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the races originally they did.
Well, they might not have had a lot of overlap because I think the RX-7s were the under 2-liter, whereas I think the Ford was the over 2-liter.
GTO.
Is it GTO? Okay.
Yeah, they were both GTO.
I thought they were GTU.
No,
I was referring to the slot car actually more than
Oh, for the slot car.
IRL.
I think they have the same wheel because this looks like the third rear wheel that Revo Slots put out with the size that's between the GT and the Trans Am cars they made. So the RX-7 wheels are just like 2 or 3 millimeters bigger than the small wheel. So hopefully these are the same wheels, and you can say, oh, okay, they're all the same wheels. We're good to go. Because if they go crazy and start making another new wheel, then it kind of throws my idea out the window. And somebody said there might be a Camaro in that area. I don't know.
Yeah, Camaro, and I think there's a Mercury Cougar.
Mm.
They were basically the same as the Mustangs, just different liveries.
well, they were all silhouette cars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those would not have raced together.
No, I think they raced in the same. Oh no, not those. Like I don't think the RX-7 raced against that Ford, but they raced in the same series. Or the Porsche didn't race against the Mustang because there was like a widespread. There was like a 10-year period there where they kept changing the rules, bigger, faster, and they would have never been on the track at the same time, but they would have competed in the same event. That's the theory here.
No, that looks like. Yeah, they're the same ones. Sorry.
Yeah. That point of view does make it look like a different car, though.
It did a little bit initially, but then I realised it's just the other colour.
That's the only thing new I've seen recently. I'm sure there's
Looks quite
other stuff
durable.
out.
And that's the key question. Is that the same as the RX-7s are?
It's the same chassis style, but all their chassis are that style. There's the part. There's what you need. What's that rear wheel say?
Parts on the back of the sheet. So that's a quick look at the new, as well
Thanks,
as the
Jim.
option parts on the
It's
back.
almost like he's here. I can hear him. The rear wheel says RS.
RS209?
Well,
No, that's the axle, sorry.
No, up at the top left. 253 RS 263 maybe?
Yeah, 252 front, 253 rear.
253.
There we go, yeah. 252 front, 253 rear, yeah.
Mhm.
I'll look it up. Thanks for finding that. I didn't even see that.
It's this whole video from Jim.
What do we
I'll
make
have
of
to-
having a spring on the guide? He's got a guide spring pictured there, and it's
All of
in
those
all
are-
their cars, isn't it?
Yeah, it's never bothered me.
I leave mine in, but some of the guys in our club take it out. We race on wood tracks. The only thing I can think of is when you hit, like if the routing isn't quite the same where the edges meet, maybe you'll get some fluctuation there, but I don't know if it helps or hurts you.
Is the spring responsible for the braid pressure, the pressure between the braid and the rails? Is it basically running
I'm sure
on
it
its front
helps.
wheels?
It certainly helps
Uh,
for like wheeling out when you first take off. I mean, you're getting a little bit of extra travel, but
yeah.
not enough to make a huge difference. Yeah, that rear wheel is the same on their GTU IMSA class cars. Cool. I should be good to go. I'm gonna have to try to talk the gang into that instead of another GT class.
And they're not that expensive, are they? They're like,
Same as a slotted, about right around there, maybe a little more than a slot.
Yeah,
Well, no, a little
I,
more
more
NSR. They're
like
probably about
MSRs,
NSR.
more like
Yeah.
scale auto NSR, not
Yeah,
slotted
you're right.
still on the low end.
I forget slotted was still low.
Not
oh, so
anymore. They're
they are up
95
there.
bucks.
So that, yeah, so basically they are up there as a price point. They're nice models though, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just that,
Yes.
yeah, the chassis won't quite cut it with the plastic ones.
Yeah, that's correct. But they work well.
Yeah,
Yeah, for a class racing where you're just racing on Revo slots, they're perfectly
yeah,
fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
it
it's
gives
good
new.
that they've got plenty uh of classes.
Yeah, and it's
Have
nice
they
that
improved?
the parts are all bigger, like the 3 mm axle, so it gives guys a
Yeah,
chance
yeah.
to play with other different parts that other scales have.
Have they solved that quality of spur gear issue that I read about?
I
I th
thought they did. I think Jim said something about that a
I
while
think
back.
they've mostly fixed it.
Yeah,
And I think the part that is the worst is the pinion, because I'm changing those opinions that come with the plastic ones, Sigma, either 9 or 8, for instance, depend. And the car gets really quiet when you do that.
yeah. I ran a steel pinion for at the weekend for the first time ever, and they are really quiet. Really quiet.
The hardened steel, not just brass. You're talking hardened
No,
steel.
steel,
Okay.
proper steel. I mean, there's nothing. I don't. Is steel heavier than brass? I doubt it, isn't it? No,
Yeah.
they are. They
Yeah, it
are.
is.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's the kind that's got a
No,
slimmer.
it's not.
No,
I
shut
don't.
up,
I
Greg.
don't think
Brass
it
is
I
is.
don't want your
All right.
stupid science to interfere with my conjecture.
brass is
No.
heavier than steel. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not a full width pinion. It's a full width where it meets the hub, where it meets the axle, like the armature, and you press it on. You know, you push it. It's like pushing it through a standard width pinion, but the teeth part of it is slimmed down. I don't know how. I didn't. You see, I put this car together so quickly, without really paying a heck of a lot of attention, that one of the places I could have saved some weight was to have fitted their nylon pinion, which is one of the ones I regularly use. Scale Auto brand. This would have been fine, would have been legal. Could have saved potentially. I don't know this yet because I haven't weighed it, but I could have saved some weight with the pinion gear.
Do they make an ergo aluminum pinion?
They do, but
I don't.
although we had a comprehensive shopping list, there were certain parts that we just couldn't get.
Mm.
So we didn't get that. We didn't get an air gal. I've got an air gal scale auto pinion. It's a 12 tooth because we had all the bases covered, or we tried to, and there were just parts availability was a problem, constant problem.
I find those aluminum pinions are very quiet. They at least quiet in when they run, but I don't know how long they'll last. Like for your long events, I don't know how good they are
Me
for
neither.
distance. Yeah.
Me neither. I've never ran an Ergal. Well, I think the reason I've never ran an Ergal is because the discus races that I've seen people run and try and run an Ergal, they don't make it. They don't make it through 24s. But then again, I'm now running gears that I know won't run through 24 because we're only running through sixes. I'm running aluminium Ergal spur gears if it suits me because of the diameter and tooth number, etc. and la da la da da. The weight penalty for that spur gear is absolutely been all to be almost non-consequential at all. And this is because some of the plastics I get aren't round, even though I go for some of the better quality plastics like Scale Auto and Slot It, etc. Some of them just, yeah, they're a hit and miss. So back in January, we raced Slotting Plus and you fit them and they're quiet straight away. Well, they are against the nylon pinions that I use, but they were good, they were quiet, they were true, they were straight, they were round. Everything that occasionally a scale auto isn't. But then again, occasionally they are. So you just have to go through your box and find out what you get, or open all your packets and find out what you've actually bought. But no, I've never tried an air. I've not personally yet tried an air gal. Can't believe I'm paying that much attention to tenths of a gram now. I was always, always thinking about trying to be light, and that nylon is just light compared to any metal. I hate brass pinions. They're heavy and they just wear too quickly against every spur gear I've ever put them against in the endurance races. I don't like brass.
Well, just remember, brass is lighter than steel, as I always say.
I mean, I guess it depends on how big the diameter is, because nowadays you can get most tooth counts at most diameters as well, and that's another factor. Even within the regulation set of you must run scale auto, I still had choices on diameter. 7.5 14 tooth, diameter 14 tooth, 7.5 12 tooth. So I can get, and none of those gears should be that diameter. They should all be different, but they're all there at 7.5 mil, and that was
when you have those pinions, you know how what are they, like 2 millimeters thick? I wonder what happens if you shave those down to half the width, the thickness, how much weight you save, or if it's not worth it because then it's too light. But
the pinions, well, the steel one was done that way. Only,
okay.
Yeah, half the tooth width.
Well, kind of like NSR does. Like they shave off half of it, and
yeah. You can't afford to shave it off at the bottom, otherwise you lose your grip on your armature shaft. But then the fact that it's narrow down at the bottom there caused me a problem when it came to actually no problem pushing it on, but pulling it off. The narrow bit wanted to go inside the slot in my pinion puller, and that's a problem I've never experienced before. But you do what you can. Nobody asked me about the scale auto circ to track. I kind of want somebody to say, what was the track like compared to Ninco or Scalextric or Carrera?
Oh.
No nose goes.
Huh?
I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit. Like the tire wear was really low.
I did.
But
save it for the next show. We'll need another hour filler.
You won't get an hour out of the track.
You can give us a quick impression, compared to other track types.
Well, I mean, it might be connected with the fact that they chose the tire that they did choose, but we found it to be way, by far and away the slipperiest track I've ever raced on. I think even Scalextric would have given up more grip than the. It's got a coarseness to the surface, but nowhere near as coarse as Ninco. Ninco will bite your tires, and Ninco is relatively high grip by comparison. And this was slippery.
You ever race on Carrera?
Yeah, just
is it similar or
what we used a BSR tire that day, and I think that might be the same compound as a slotted tire, and that was fine. We weren't using very fast cars. We were using Scalextric with the stock motors on stock gear ratios, so it was acceptable level of grip. I wouldn't say I've got a full understanding of how grippy Carrera really can be, but yeah, this was. I've yet to have a real race on Polycar too. And,
what kind of tire was it for this race?
Oh, it was a Scale Auto at ES25.
Okay.
19.5 by 10 size. And the wear rate was low, very low. If you look, I'll dig out the photograph and show you the photograph of the car, because there are a few more things in the photograph I've not spoken about. yet. But we'll do that when we take a closer look at the car post race in another show. But yeah, the track, I didn't like it. The other thing you may have noticed from a video is that there was a digital lane change piece in the glass cabinet.
Oh yeah.
At the yeah, and
Yeah, and it looked like there were electronics in there, like because it had wires coming out from it, right? Or was that no, that was some other piece.
the when I didn't know all about it when I made the video clip, and Gio picked out the fact that what I was claiming to be a flipper was not actually a flipper, and he is correct. But the moment when I mentioned the flipper, it was actually a plastic piece which is on the exit.
Okay.
But the other piece that's there, because it's a two straight crossover, the other piece that was upside down in my video had actually got the flipper in. The
Yeah.
only missing piece was the piece of rail that was that you could clearly see was missing.
Yeah.
And in the subsequent conversation, I'm talking just as I was leaving the building and saying thank you to Ivan, I said to him, look, there's one thing I never got to talk to you about, and that was that lane change piece in your cabinet. And he said, what about it? And then he gave me a bit more information and said that piece is in production and it should be retailer ready within a month or two. Because as far as I'm aware, that piece has been touted for maybe as long as 4 or 5 years now. But it is finally there, and it can, although it's got the solenoids built into it, it will only come without control electronics. So your control electronics can be transplanted from your Carrera. I didn't mention Scale Electric, but I'm going to presume that would work too. And obviously, slotted oxygen, which is, can you buy Carrera control electronics? No, you'd have to take them out of a track piece. Same for Scale Electric, I presume. Oxygen is the only one where you can buy, control.
It's interesting. So they're basically providing what Professor Motor has been doing with the Ninco, providing the track piece with flippers and solenoid, and then you got to put whatever electronics you want.
Yeah, I imagine the market for it is going to be very, very small. But the interesting thing he said about the racing is that in their experience, when you get two quality drivers running digitally, whoever gets to go, if they're going to go side by side, etc., you can't pass one another because the guy who gets to run over the lane change is at a disadvantage because of the little bits of missing power. He said, in their experience, digital ain't worth pursuing because two good quality drivers with good cars can't actually pass one another. And I thought to myself,
What?
yeah,
He hasn't got a clue.
yeah, that kind of.
I mean, but
that,
it's similar to real racing as well, no? I mean, because if you have two good drivers with two good cars, I mean, the one that has overtake is moving on the outs. I mean, on the lane that is not the quickest lane, right? So, I don't know. I mean,
he echoes some truths, which is like there's always a quickest lane, and everybody wants to go to the quickest lane. And I said yes, and as soon as everybody does, it's no longer the quickest lane, is it? And so there is a
exactly. I
reason
mean,
to be in the lanes.
Especially with the big circuit, basically, yeah, and a longer race, you will see there's gonna be some changes, yeah. Anyway, I mean but so coming back to the lane changers, because I think even if they're giving solenoids and the hardware, let's say, for mechanically actioning the lane changers, will be really interesting to understand which kind of approach they're using. Because if they're using the Ninco with the spring, right? So then you will need to, if you want to install oxygen lane changers, then you need to have the new ones that are the one where you can also calculate. I mean, you can basically set the amount of time that the solenoid gets open, because this is depending on when you sense when the flipper, the distance between the sensor and the point of the flipper. because
Yeah.
at the moment it works for Ninco, let's say, and you can make it work if you want for Scalatrix, as I've done it, but it's not ideal, let's say. Or
But if
the
they're-
other approach,
if they're making it so that people can move their Carrera electronics into it, then the only solution I can think of is that they've made the
mechanical.
they've made a mechanical flipper reset mechanism, because there is nothing in Carrera that has a
Electrically
timer
reset.
or anything. It latches open for lane changing, and then the car closes it when it goes through. So
Yeah, which
unless they have that kind of mechanism in their track as well, then the Carrera electronics would be useless.
Yes, I mean, and it will be interesting to understand what they are trying to do. I mean, if yeah, so because also this will depend on how much also kind of
I wonder if
research
it would be-
they've done.
I wonder if it would be possible for them to make it so that there's a small lever, a plastic piece, let's say, that's there to mechanically close the flipper in a la Carrera style, which you could literally omit if you'd got electronic complete electronic control of the flipper. Solenoid
The only
control.
one that has complete electronic, so which means that you need to have two solenoids, as far as I know, is Scalatrix.
Yeah.
And you don't have, and I don't think you can transplant the Scalatrix into that truck because the lane spacing is not the same.
Oh, so the
Okay.
lane spacing is critical, is it?
Yeah, the electronics.
Yeah, unless you want to split, the board, which you can do
Circuit
it,
board.
but it's
I
not
get it.
something that for everybody, right?
That
it's not
might explain why he didn't mention Scalatrix.
Yeah.
I
But
think
he
it makes
did
sense.
mention,
Why would
he
you
did
move
mention
with
if you could
Scalatrix?
come up with a way to artificially slow down the car that went by on a clean lane in comparison to the car that went over the
Ah.
lane changer. And I
I
was
mean,
like,
it's so quick.
yeah,
It's so quick.
What?
It's so quick. It's so quick that it
no.
doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes, I mean, of course, there is things that you're gonna change a lane, but again, depending when you change a lane, that you're gonna slow down. You're gonna, it's basically it's critical where you change a lane in relative terms to the shape of the circuit. Because if you do, when, for instance, you're approaching like a inner kind of a lane when you change in the corner, I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's so nice to see you cleaning your ear in
That was just a
live
hair that I
TV.
pulled.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
fuck, it's still the same, man. Anyway,
It's not. It's nowhere near as disgusting.
Okay.
okay.
All right. I think we're ready to end the live so we can stop cleaning our ears and talking about getting the runs. So I'm going to end the live stream. Everybody wave bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Nobody has runs. We're all fine.
The show has taken a turn for the worse.